The train was already moving when Maya realized how quiet everything felt. She sat by the window, her laptop bag resting against her leg, watching the city slide away. This trip had come suddenly, a last-minute decision from management. One conference, 2 attendees, her name and her boss's name on the email. Nothing unusual on paper, yet her chest felt tight as if she had agreed to something she did not fully understand. Arjun arrived a few minutes later, carrying a small suitcase and a calm expression. He nodded at her, polite and professional, the way he always was at work. They exchanged brief greetings and sat across from each other. The train picked up speed. Outside, buildings turned into roads, and roads turned into open land. Inside, silence stretched between them. Maya opened her laptop, pretending to review notes. Arjun checked his phone. Neither of them spoke for a while. They had worked together for 3 years, shared meetings, deadlines, and pressure. Yet this felt new, too close, too personal. No desks between them, no coworkers. To break the moment, Arjun finally spoke about the schedule. His voice was steady, familiar. Maya responded quickly, keeping her tone sharp and focused. The words came easily, but her mind wandered. She noticed how tired he looked, the faint lines near his eyes. She wondered when she had started seeing these small details. The train slowed at a station. People came and went. Noise filled the cabin, then faded again. When the train moved forward, Arjun leaned back and sighed. Not the sigh of a boss, but of a man who had been carrying weight for too long. He mentioned the workload, the pressure, from upper management. Maya listened, nodding. She had felt the same pressure, but hearing it from him felt different, more human, less distant. She shared her own struggles, careful not to sound emotional. Talked about long hours, missed family dinners, and the constant need to prove herself. Arjun listened closely. He did not interrupt. When she finished, he smiled softly, not the office smile, but a real one. It made her heart skip, and she looked away quickly, embarrassed by her own reaction. By the time they reached the hotel, it was already evening. The building stood tall, clean, and quiet. Their rooms were on the same floor. The receptionist handed them their keys with a polite smile. Maya felt a strange mix of relief and tension. Separate rooms. That was good. It had to be good. They agreed to meet in the lobby in 30 minutes to review the next day's plan. Maya went to her room, closed the door, and leaned against it for a moment. She told herself to calm down. This was work. Nothing more. She freshened up, changed her clothes, and returned to the lobby. Arjun was already there, sitting with a folder open on his lap. They discussed presentation points, timing, and travel details. The conversation stayed professional, but the air felt different. Softer, warmer. When they finished, neither stood up right away. The lobby lights were dim. A few guests passed by, their voices low. Arjun asked if she was hungry. Maya hesitated, then nodded. Room service felt too lonely. They chose the small cafe near the hotel entrance. Dinner was simple. Soup, bread, quiet music in the background. First, they talked about work again, but the words slowly drifted. Arjun spoke about his early career, mistakes he had made, chances he had missed. Maya had never heard him speak like this. She saw not her boss, but a man shaped by time and regret. She shared her own story, her hopes, her fear of staying invisible. Arjun looked at her with something close to admiration. The feeling settled deep inside her, heavy and warm. When they finished eating, Maya checked the time and suggested they head back. Arjun agreed without protest. As they walked, rain began to fall, light at first, then steady. They stood under the hotel entrance, waiting for it to slow. Neither moved. The rain blurred the city lights. The world felt smaller, quieter. Arjun spoke softly, saying how rare it was to feel understood. Maya felt the truth of his words in her chest. She wanted to respond, but fear held her back. She thought of rules, of lines, of how easily moments could turn into mistakes. She stepped back, creating space between them. Arjun noticed. His expression changed, not angry, not offended, just aware. He nodded, as if he understood without explanation. They returned to the elevator in silence. When the doors opened on their floor, Maya wished him good night. Arjun did the same. The doors closed. Between them, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts, in her room, sleep did not come easily. She replayed the day again and again. Nothing wrong had happened. No promises made. No rules broken. Yet her heart felt restless, like it had crossed an invisible line and could not go back. She wondered if Arjun felt the same. She wondered if distance would return once the trip ended. She wondered why the idea of that distance hurt. Morning arrived too quickly. Maya dressed, steadying herself. She met Arjun in the lobby, both of them calm, composed, professional. Attended the conference, spoke with confidence, and impressed the audience. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But beneath the surface, something had already begun. Something quiet. Something dangerous. Something neither of them was ready to name. The next morning, the city felt different to Maya. The streets outside the hotel were bustling. Yet inside her mind, everything was quiet and heavy. She met Arjun at the lobby as planned. Both of them polite, professional, pretending that last night had been ordinary. But Maya felt the invisible weight of the closeness they had shared, the shared meals, the long conversations, the unspoken tension. It was strange how work trips, which were supposed to be strictly professional, could suddenly feel personal. She tried to shake off the feeling, telling herself that this was just a temporary situation, nothing that would last. She had rules, lines she would not cross, and she reminded herself of them repeatedly. They walked together to the conference hall. Maya noticed how effortless Arjun looked when he walked, his posture calm, controlled, confident. He spoke in the same steady tone he always did, but there was something softer in his words, something more patient, more genuine. During the walk, they barely touched, just their arms brushing once or twice. Maya felt a small jolt, a reminder of how sensitive she had become to his presence. Every glance, every subtle movement seemed magnified. She tried not to dwell on it, focusing on the meeting agenda instead. She asked questions about the presentations, the schedule, the workshops. Arjun answered clearly, but she could tell that his mind was partly elsewhere, just as hers was. In the first session of the day, Maya took careful notes while Arjun spoke to other attendees. She watched how people responded to him. Picked admiration, even a little awe, but she couldn't focus. Her attention kept returning to him, the way his eyes occasionally scanned the room. The way he leaned forward slightly when he spoke, the faint crease in his forehead when he concentrated. Maya felt something stirring inside her, a mix of admiration, curiosity, and a strange warmth she wasn't used to feeling for anyone at work. She quickly shook her head, forcing herself to concentrate on the notes she was taking. During the coffee break, the conference hall emptied a little, leaving Maya and Arjun alone at a small table by the window. The rain from last night had stopped, leaving the streets glistening and quiet. Arjun poured himself a cup of coffee and offered one to Maya. She accepted. And for a moment, they simply sat in silence, listening to the quiet hum of the building. Then Arjun spoke softly, almost as if sharing a secret. He talked about how rare it was to meet someone at work who could understand the pressures he faced, the constant need to balance expectations, results, and personal life. Listened, captivated not just by his words, but by the openness in his tone. He rarely spoke this way, usually reserved, always professional. But now, in this quiet moment, he seemed human, fragile even. And it tugged at something deep inside her. Maya hesitated before replying. She didn't want to appear vulnerable, yet she wanted to connect. She told him about the long nights she spent trying to meet deadlines, the fear of failing silently, the loneliness that came with working so hard and feeling unnoticed. Arjun listened, not interrupting, his expression unreadable, yet attentive. There was no judgment in his eyes, only understanding. It made her heart ache in a way she didn't expect. She realized how easy it was to open up to him here, away from the office, away from prying eyes. And that realization both frightened and excited her. As the break ended, they both stood, slightly reluctant. The conference continued, but Maya could feel a subtle tension in the air between them. They were careful, professional, speaking when necessary, yet their minds kept returning to that brief moment of quiet understanding. Maya noticed small gestures, how Arjun held the door for her, how he occasionally glanced at her notes, how his smile lingered a fraction longer than it should have. She caught herself smiling back, feeling the warmth spread through her chest. She told herself firmly to focus on the work, but her mind rebelled. After the lunch break, a sudden thunderstorm began outside. The rain hammered against the windows, the sky darkened unnaturally, and most attendees chose to remain inside. Maya and Arjun found themselves waiting together by a large window overlooking the city street. Water ran down the glass in streaks, blurring the traffic lights and umbrellas below. They stood side by side, close but not touching, feeling the tension of proximity without acting on it. Arjun spoke quietly about his childhood, the dreams he once had, the mistakes he regretted. Maya listened, fascinated by this new side of him. He spoke without pretense, without authority, without the polished mask of the workplace. She saw someone genuine, someone human, someone capable of vulnerability. Maya felt a mix of emotions. She couldn't name attraction, yes, but also empathy, longing, and a strange sadness. She realized how much she cared for him in that instant, not in a physical sense, but emotionally. He had broken through the professional barriers that usually kept her distant, and it frightened her to feel this connection. She thought about the line she had promised herself she would never cross. She thought about the consequences, the judgment, the possible heartbreak, and yet she could not ignore the pull. The undeniable closeness that had developed in such a short time. Arjun noticed her quiet reflection. He looked at her with a gentle curiosity, as if he could sense the storm of thoughts inside her mind. He did not press, did not speak of what they were feeling. Instead, he gave her the space to decide how to act. That small gesture of respect, of understanding, deepened her feelings. Maya realized that his respect, his restraint, his ability to be genuine without crossing lines, was as compelling as anything else she had ever experienced. The rain slowed to a drizzle and the conference resumed. They returned to their seats side by side, but still careful, professional. Yet now there was an unspoken language between them, glances, gestures, small smiles that carried meaning beyond words. Maya felt her heart race every time their eyes met. She reminded herself to stay grounded, to remember the rules, but the effort felt almost impossible. The emotional closeness had been awakened, and it could not be easily ignored. Evening came and the conference ended for the day. Maya and Arjun walked back to the hotel under umbrellas, rain dripping from the edges, water pooling on the pavement. They spoke casually about dinner options, but the conversation quickly softened again, drifting into personal territory. Arjun spoke about his favorite childhood books, the small joys he had missed in life, the friends he had lost touch with. Maya shared her love for quiet mornings, her favorite spots in the city, the moments that made her feel alive. Every word, every pause, every glance carried more meaning than either of them dared to admit. By the time they reached the hotel, Maya felt drained yet exhilarated. She wondered how it was possible to feel so connected to someone in such a short time. As she worried about the implications of this connection, the potential for misunderstanding, the danger of longing for something she could not have. She reminded herself that tomorrow would bring work, meetings, and routine. But she knew that the memory of today would linger far longer than the tasks ahead. Dinner was ordered quietly to their rooms. Maya considered suggesting they eat together. again, but she decided against it. She needed space to think, to process the emotions that had been stirred. Arjun seemed to sense her decision and did not press. Instead, he offered a polite smile, an acknowledgement of the tension between desire and propriety. That small, simple smile felt like a reassurance and a challenge at the same time. That night, Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. She thought about Arjun's eyes, the softness of his voice, the way he had listened. She thought about the way she had felt seen, understood, noticed in a way she rarely experienced. She also thought about the boundaries, the rules, the professional lines they could not cross. And she realized that the most difficult moments were not the ones she could see, but the ones she could feel quiet, subtle, dangerous in their intensity. Sleep did not come easily. Her mind replayed every interaction of the day, analyzing, questioning, longing. She recognized the attraction, the pull, and the emotional intimacy that had developed. Yet she also recognized the importance of restraint, the necessity of respect, the wisdom in keeping distance. She told herself repeatedly that tomorrow would be easier, that morning light would bring clarity, that distance was the only safe choice. Morning arrived and Maya dressed quietly, careful to maintain her composure. She met Arjun in the lobby, both of them polite and professional. Nothing seemed different to the casual observer, yet both knew the truth. The day had shifted something inside them, more recognition of connection. A spark of emotional closeness and an unspoken understanding that some feelings could not be acted upon. Throughout the second day of the conference, Maya and Arjun maintained professionalism. They delivered their presentations, engaged with attendees, and impressed everyone with their teamwork. But beneath the surface, an emotional tension persisted. Every glance carried meaning, every gesture hinted at the connection that neither could voice. Maya felt both exhilarated and terrified. She realized that attraction was not just physical, it could exist quietly, emotionally, dangerously, without ever crossing a line. By the evening, the day was over. They walked back under the city lights, quieter this time, each lost in thought. Maya felt the pull of what they share. The morning after the conference ended, Maya felt a strange mix of relief and heaviness. The trip was over, but the tension she and Arjun had felt lingered like a shadow. They returned to the lobby together to check out. Kaya noticed how ordinary everything seemed. The hotel staff were polite. The elevators worked. The streets outside were filled with people hurrying about their business, but inside her mind, everything was still moving in slow motion. She wondered how such a short trip could leave such a lasting impact. Every glance, every conversation, every moment of silence between them replayed in her head, refusing to fade. Arjun walked beside her to the car, quiet, careful, professional. He had packed lightly, carrying only a small bag, but he moved with purpose, like a man aware that every second counted. Maya kept her eyes on the street, watching reflections ripple in the puddles. She felt the pull of what had been, the weight of what could never happen. There was no anger, no drama, only an intense awareness of connection and restraint. It was a lesson in itself. Sometimes the strongest moments are the quietest. During the ride back, Aya tried to focus on work-related thoughts. She reminded herself of upcoming deadlines, pending emails, and presentations she needed to prepare. Yet her mind wandered back to Arjun. She thought of the way he had listened to her struggles, the way his voice softened during personal conversations, and the small gestures that felt so intimate yet entirely appropriate. She realized that human connection could be complicated, that emotions could run deep without any physical act occurring, and that even the most innocent interactions could stir feelings that were hard to control. Arjun spoke little during the drive. When he did, it was about mundane things, traffic, weather, and the schedule for their return to the office. Yet, in those small words, Maya sensed his awareness, his quiet reflection on the same unspoken tension. She wondered if he, too, had felt the weight of their conversations, the closeness of the shared moments, and the subtle understanding that had grown between them. The awareness alone was enough to make her pulse quicken, reminding her that attraction could be both thrilling and dangerous. Even when it existed only in thought, by the time they reached the office, Maya felt herself bracing for normalcy. She hoped that returning to the familiar environment, surrounded by colleagues and routines, would wash away the quiet intensity of the trip. But she quickly realized that nothing could erase it completely. Every glance at Arjun reminded her of their shared moments. Every casual interaction, every brief conversation carried echoes of the connection they had experienced. It was a subtle, persistent undercurrent that she could neither ignore nor fully acknowledge. In the first few days back, Maya focused intensely on her tasks. She immersed herself in reports, emails, and client meetings, hoping to redirect her thoughts. Arjun, too, seemed absorbed in his work, concise in communication, polite but distant. Their interactions were professional. But Maya noticed the fleeting moments, the way he paused slightly before speaking to her, the brief acknowledgement of her ideas, the way his eyes occasionally lingered. She recognized that they were both practicing restraint, consciously maintaining boundaries while silently aware of the emotions that still existed. Even as the workday ended, a quiet tension remained. Maya left the office and walked alone through the city streets, reflecting on what had transpired. She understood now that attraction could exist without words or gestures, that emotional intimacy could be as powerful as any physical connection. She also realized that restraint was not just a choice, but a necessity, a way to preserve integrity, respect, and the balance of life. She knew that acting on emotions, however strong, could lead to regret, heartbreak, and complications that neither of them wanted. Days turned into weeks, and Maya found herself adjusting to the new normal. She maintained professionalism, focused on her goals, and carefully managed interactions with Arjun. He, too, seemed committed to preserving the boundaries they had established. They exchanged emails, brief messages, and occasional smiles, all within the limits of propriety. Yet the shared understanding lingered beneath the surface, a silent acknowledgement of the emotional connection that had formed on the trip. Maya recognized that this connection did not need to be acted upon to be meaningful. It had already shaped her awareness of human emotion and desire. One afternoon, Maya stayed late in the office reviewing a project proposal. Arjun appeared at the doorway, offering feedback with his usual calm and precise manner. Their conversation was professional, yet there was a subtle warmth, a mutual respect that carried traces of the past trip. Maya realized that their connection had matured, transformed from a fleeting attraction into something deeper and more enduring, a recognition of understanding, restraint, and the capacity to feel deeply without crossing boundaries. She felt a sense of pride in herself and in Arjun for navigating emotions responsibly, acknowledging the feelings without allowing them to disrupt their lives. Maya reflected on the lessons she had learned. She understood that attraction, temptation, and emotional closeness were natural human experiences, but they required awareness, discipline, and moral clarity. She had experienced longing, admiration, and connection without any inappropriate actions. She had faced the challenge of emotional intimacy and emerged with a stronger sense of self. Arjun had done the same, demonstrating maturity, respect, and restraint. Together, they had navigated a complex emotional landscape without harming themselves or others. At home that evening, Maya reviewed her personal journal. She wrote about the trip, the moments of closeness, the conversations, and the feelings that had arisen. She reflected on the importance of boundaries, the value of restraint, and the power of emotional honesty. Writing helped her process the intensity of her experiences, allowing her to acknowledge the connection with Arjun, while reinforcing the decision to maintain distance. She understood that some bonds are not meant to be acted upon, yet they can profoundly impact personal growth and emotional awareness. Over time, Maya noticed changes in her interactions at work. She was more confident, more empathetic, and more aware of the subtleties in human behavior. She listened better, responded with thoughtfulness, and navigated professional relationships with greater insight. The trip with Arjun had left a lasting impression, not through romance or scandal, but through emotional growth and awareness. She realized that life sometimes presented opportunities to test character, to confront desire, and to choose integrity over impulse. Arjun also seemed changed. Colleagues noticed a subtle shift in his demeanor. He remained professional and composed, but there was a newfound patience and warmth in his interactions. Maya suspected that he, too, reflected on the lessons of the trip, the importance of boundaries, the power of understanding, and the necessity of restraint. They both carried the same unspoken acknowledgement. They had shared something unique, something meaningful, but something that could not be pursued further without consequences. Months passed, and the memory of the trip remained vivid. Maya occasionally thought about the moments by the window during the storm, the quiet dinners, the conversations that had revealed vulnerability and authenticity. She smiled at the memory, recognizing the beauty of emotional intimacy without physical connection. She understood that longing and attraction could exist safely when tempered by self-awareness and respect. She had learned to cherish feelings without acting impulsively, to acknowledge connection without compromising integrity. The bond between Maya and Arjun transformed into a subtle friendship, grounded in respect and shared experiences. They supported each other professionally, offering guidance and feedback while maintaining personal boundaries. The intensity of the initial attraction softened into a quiet understanding, a connection that neither needed to be declared aloud to exist. Maya realized that emotional relationships could be as profound as romantic ones, capable of teaching lessons, fostering growth, and enriching life without requiring fulfillment. One evening, as Maya left the office, she reflected on the journey of the past months. She had grown emotionally, gaining insight into desire, restraint, and human connection. She understood that the trip had been a test not of temptation, but of character. She recognized her own strength in maintaining boundaries, and her capacity to experience profound emotions without acting recklessly. She felt proud of herself and grateful for the lessons learned. Arjun passed her in the hallway, offering a brief nod and smile. Maya returned the gesture, acknowledging the unspoken understanding between them. There was no awkwardness, no regret, only a shared respect that had been forged through quiet moments of connection and careful restraint. She realized that some relationships are meant to teach, not to consummate. They leave an imprint on the heart, shaping who we are, guiding our choices, and reminding us of the importance of integrity. Maya continued to reflect on the trip's impact. She understood that human emotions are complex, capable of deep attraction, longing, and connection even in the absence of physical interaction. She had experienced the thrill of closeness, the tension of desire, and the challenge of restraint, all without crossing the line. The experience had strengthened her character, enhanced her empathy, and deepened her understanding of emotional